Good morning, good evening to everyone, and welcome to this second session on Arthashastra. Before we continue with our discussions, there are a few questions, so I will take a few minutes just to go over these questions, and then we will continue with our discussion. So the first question is, what is this Anvikshiki, Trayi and Varta? So we will anyway see this. I know when we used it yesterday, it was a technical term. Anyway, we will see it, I think, tomorrow. So I'm not answering that question. Another question which says, as we are talking a lot about Dandaniti, does it mean it is more aligned with dictatorship? Danda is not about dictatorship. It is the representative of dharma, as we discussed yesterday. I've been repeatedly making this reference to spectre, so Sengol, as they say. So that is what it is. Danda means only that, not a dictatorship. There is another question which says, when was Vishnugupta given the name Kautilya and Chanakya? Was it after completing Arthashastra or related to Chandragupta Maurya? I don't think this is a very difficult question to answer. Not much information is available to answer these kinds of questions as to when and all that. So I'll just leave it there. Is there any relevance or overlap of Arthashastra and Niti Shastra of Bhartrihari? Now we must understand the Niti Shastra texts generally deal with what is called Samanya Niti and Rajaniti. So Arthashastra belongs to Rajaniti, whereas Bhartrihari's Niti Shastra, I think mostly covers the Samanya Niti, which is all about an individual's moral and ethical code and all that kind of things, value systems and so on. There are some sections in Dharma Shastras, Gautama's and Apastamba Dharma Shastras, that cover justice, enforcement, generally administration, like the list of offences, who can be prosecuted, who cannot be, and so on. Are these consistent with us? Even Manusmriti has it. They may not be exactly the same, but are broadly consistent in their approach. They will not, go tangentially away. All the Arthashastra related texts are similar because they draw from the same philosophical foundations. But as we will see, even if you look at Arthashastra per se, leave Dharma Shastra, even if you look at the Arthashastra, the past teachers of Arthashastra, whom Kautilya keeps referring in his Arthashastra, they have differences in specific recommendations in many points, which we will actually see in the course of our discussions. So such differences may exist. Such differences are expected, but philosophically they will not be misaligned. So you are right. Some of the Dharma Shastra also has some Rajaniti, Dandaniti, etc. Is there anything written about forced migration and destroying of a country's culture through migration? I am not aware of such things being written in Arthashastra. It is very difficult to detect such a motive. Although there are indications of habitating virgin lands. We will see one shloka today. Certainly Chanakya says we can bring people from abroad or people from other parts of the country into a virgin land. But to detect this kind of a motive is too much of an interpretation. I don't think such things are intended or any such thing. Okay, so with these questions, let's continue. So yesterday, we had an introduction to Arthashastra. We broadly understood the meaning of Artha, Prithvivyam Labhe Palanecha. We also understood how Arthashastra, the meaning of Artha has slightly different connotations, but all of them talking about wealth in a larger sense, societal sense of the term. We also saw that Arthashastra is not necessarily the original contribution of Kautilya. He himself says it in the very first mantra, but he has very cogently, nicely organized them. He has disagreed with some of the views and he has agreed with some others. He has also given his own interpretations and his perspective on many of the issues. I quickly showed you the intent of Arthashastra. It doesn't bother whether it is a monarchy or a democracy. It's not bothered about all that. It is bothered about how do you internally administer a country and how do you do a territorial expansion. These are the two broad intent of Arthashastra, notwithstanding the origin of the state, what is the organizational mechanism for administering the state. All those are not in the purview of Arthashastra. We sort of closed yesterday's session with a quick understanding of the 15 books as to how this Arthashastra is organized. As you may recollect, book 11 is the shortest book, just one chapter. Book 6 has 2 chapters. Book 2 is the largest, which has 1/5, etc. Okay. Now, I need to, there are a couple of points I wanted to make about Arthashastra before we take today's discussion. So, let me do that. Just let me do a slide share. Okay. So there are certain unique things about Arthashastra which I want to bring to your attention. First of all, it's absolutely practical. This is something amazing about Arthashastra. As I was telling yesterday, there are just 2 chapters in book 6 which provides theoretical concepts. None of the other books have anything theory. The rest of the work is a manual of instructions for kings and officers of the state. So it is a very detailed manual. So there is very little theory, but actual practice. How do you administer the state? So, if somebody reads Arthashastra carefully, somehow we'll come to this feeling that it could have been written only by somebody who has actually implemented the tactics. Because it's all such a detailed explanation. How to form alliances, how to attack a powerful king, how to deal with unrest, revolt that can happen in a country or even in the neighborhood and all that. And what are the tricks to play on gullible people? So, there are many such things. So, very clearly, these things cannot be theoretically written. I am sure people, the person who is Kautilya in this case happens to have actually implemented it, and that's what the story behind Kautilya also seems to suggest. So this is something unique about Arthashastra. It is very practical. The second aspect of Arthashastra, which I said yesterday, is it has a very detailed exposition of issues. He doesn't say something and then go away with one sentence. He gets into so many. Look at here, for example, in book 2, chapter 36, 29 shloka, talks about what should be the punishment for passing urine or stools in public places. We need it badly in India today, I think. For all the Swachh Bharat that we are talking, some amount of deterrence is also required in terms of fines and punishments. So that level of detail you will find. I'm not bringing the shloka, but I wanted to just tell you that. Kautilya talks about 40 ways of embezzlement by government servants. How the government servants can actually steal the money from the government coffers, from the treasury, from contract. Very interesting. Hopefully I'll bring it. 40 different ways by which government servants will cheat. That is also, that level of detail is there, just as an example. Penalty for discrepancy found in audit of accounts. In fact, talking of penalty, throughout Arthashastra, there are 3 types of penalty. There is a framework he has given. in one shloka. Some penalty are lower penalty, some are medium level penalty, some are high level penalty. So that also he has defined. Because he cannot say everything in Arthashastra, but if you give a framework, look at the foresight. If you give a framework, then people can make use of it and then measure it against it and then decide punishments and penalties for things which are not written in Artha. That kind of a foresight you can see here. Punishment for not doing work or running away with material and so on. It's called customer taking care of customers. Customer protection actually. So somebody takes advance. Today it's all rampant. You want a service, you want a repair, they say you have to give 50% in advance. Sometimes they say you have to give 100% in advance, and either they don't do the repair, they do a bad job and go away. So how do you address it? He thinks about it. Okay. Recommendations for the number of chiefs to defend the city. How many people you should have to, the crime and, protection. How many people you should have in a city. So there are numbers, 2, 3, 4, he agrees with the earlier teachers, he does not agree, he gives a number. I am just giving samples to tell you, look at the level of detail. He has not simply said something and then gone away. Another example that comes to my mind is there is weights and measurements. Because it's all customer has to be protected, customer protection, no? So weights and measurements, people can cheat the weight. So he does not say weights and measurements are important. He goes to such a level of detail that he gives 12 different types of weighing pans. And then he says how frequently you should calibrate it. Once in 3 months you have to calibrate it so that the weighing measurements are proper. Then if the calibration is not done, there is a penalty, fine. It's a very detailed kind of, all these you'll find in book 2. So that is another interesting aspect about Arthashastra. So these 2 points I wanted to make. That Arthashastra is very practical. Arthashastra is very, very unique because there is a fair amount of details that it actually brings into the picture. That is what it is. Okay, I think we have done with this. So this is what I wanted to complete yesterday. So let us continue this discussion today. I want to take you to the next issue that we want to discuss in Arthashastra. I hope you are able to see my new slides. Okay. So let us ask a simple question. There is this, government of India, or, you have the federal government in US, or you take any country. Suppose you call the bureaucrat or whoever it is, or the concerned ministry or the minister or secretary of state, and ask him, how do you define your country? Can you give me a framework so that I understand how do you administer your country? Suppose we ask a question like that. I do not know what today's bureaucrats will do. Certainly they will make an attempt. I am not saying they will not make an attempt. They will definitely make an attempt. But I do not know where will they start and where will they end. Do they have a nice structure to explain, oh, this is what administration of a country is all about? Can they say that? I do not know. Maybe they will. But Kautilya has done that. What he has done, and this is central to Arthashastra, that he has defined what it means to administer a country. And instead of being very verbose, instead of saying so many things, he has said everything in one mantra. He has defined a framework of how do you understand public administration in a single mantra. And then he has expanded it. That is what we are going to see today. And again, it's a very interesting thought, which only shows that he has such a clarity of thought in his mind that when it comes to public administration, just like that, he will say, if you have this, your public administration, your ability to administer a country will be pakka, proper. That is a clarity of thought that Kautilya has. So let us understand that. That is called Sapta Prakritis. That's what I have titled today's session as. So he has defined 7 Prakritis. And he says, these Sapta Prakritis, you please understand, that is what actually makes public administration. Very concise, very neat, very simple, he has given. So let us see that. So I call it as the elements of a Kautilyan state. How does a country designed along the lines of Kautilya will be administered, will be properly law, justice, so many things are there. Finance, public finance, economics, taxation. I mean, running a country is not easy. You have government departments, you have policies, you have town planning. I mean, name it. There are so many things that we have to do. He has brought all of them under 7 Prakritis. So let us see the mantra first. The mantra is the first mantra of book 6. As I told you, book 6 has only 2 chapters. The first chapter talks about internal administration. Second chapter talks about territorial expansion. And as I told you, book 6 is the only theoretical book in the entire Arthashastra. So he is now giving a theory. He is giving a conceptual foundation how to administer a state. Swami Amatya Janapada Durga Kosha Danda Mitrani Prakritaya. So that is the mantra. You see, there are 7 here. Swami, Amatya, Janapada, Durga, Kosha, Danda, Mitrani. That's all. He says, how do you do public administration? You need only 7 elements. And the 7 elements, if you know how to configure, if you are well equipped with the 7 elements, maybe your public administration is done. It looks like he has such a simple view of it. So this is the definition. The king, Swami means the king, who is the owner or the most important person. So king. Swami means king. Amatya are the ministers. Janapada is the territory or the land. Country needs a land. Now you cannot, administer a country without a land. So country, that is the Janapada. Then Durga. Durga means fort. Fortified city, because those days, there is a timestamp here. Those days the king will be in a fort. And if you cannot catch the king, then the country is safe. If you catch the king, everything is over. So the fort is very important, Durga. Then Kosha, which is the finance, the treasury. The government needs money for so many things. So this is called treasury, no? So Kosha. Then Danda. Danda means there are 2 meanings. Although I have written army here, Danda means internal justice, law, as well as protecting the country from outside. Basically, it is protection. Danda is protection. Protecting the citizens from cheating, from robber, from crime, from those kinds of things. That is one. Even protecting the people from natural calamities, adversaries, so many things may be there. Then protecting the country itself from the opponents. So all those come under Danda. And then the Mitra. Mitra is friends, ally. Today we are talking about Russia and, or suddenly we are now becoming a little closer to China. So like that, Mitra. Mitrani, Prakritaya. So this is how Kautilya has thought about. The entire public administration can be understood, can be administered by taking care of each of these. So there are 12 mantras in chapter 1 of book 6. And the 12 mantras are only talking about all these. So we will see these 12 mantras today so that we have a good understanding of the Kautilyan state namely the Sapta Prakritis. So this is how it is. You have the king, which is the centerpiece of everything. Then you have ministers and councillors, Amatya, territory and land use, Janapada, fortified capital, Durga, treasury and financial planning, Kosha, army and law and order, Danda, allies and foreign relations, Mitra. So I have numbered it in the order he has written. Swami Amatya Janapada Durga Kosha Danda Mitrani Prakritaya. So I have numbered it exactly in that order. We will talk about the ordering and all later. At the moment, we are talking about this. Now, what Kautilya has done, because this is a conceptual, this is only theoretical book, short book, only theoretical book in Arthashastra, he wants to talk about each one of them a little bit. How should each element must be excellent, very good. Then he finally comes to with the last two shlokas. If everything is good, you will be better off. If something is bad, then something will happen. Like that, he ends the. So we will talk about this. So first he talks about Swami Sampat. Sampat is wealth or excellence or whatever you may call it, the endowment or all that. Anyway, so the king who rules the territory or the protector of the subjects, the ministers by whose counsel the king takes various decisions, the territory, the populated territory over which the king is ruling, fortified capital, the place from which the king is ruling, treasury that provides the wherewithal and stability for the regime, army provides security for the regime as well as law and order in the state, and ally, friendly rulers who form part of the foreign policy of the state. Now, for each one of them, he talks about the Sampat. Some of them he has skipped. For example, Amatya Sampat he has fixed, he has skipped because he has talked it elsewhere. In this chapter, it is not. So I am also not going to talk about it in this chapter. We will also see it later. Like that, I think Durga Sampat also, he has talked about it elsewhere. These two he has left. All other Sampat he talks about, we will see them. So I will first read it and then we will go to Swami Sampat. Mahakulinaha Deva Buddhi Sattva Sampannaha. It is in Sandhi. I am doing Sandhi Vicheda as I am reading. Okay. Mahakulinaha Deva Buddhi Sattva Sampannaha Vriddhadarshi Dharmikaha Satyavak Avisamvadakaha Kritashaha Stula Lakshaha Mahotsahaha Adirga Sutraha Shakya Samantaha Drida Buddhihi Akshudra Paristakaha Vinayakamaha iti Abhigamika Gunaha. Don't worry about all this. We'll come about it later. I want you to have the benefit of going through the mantras. I am reading it. Susrusha Shavana Grahana Dharana Vijnana Uhapoha Tattva Abhivineshaha Prajna Gunaha. That is the fourth mantra. Then Shauryam Amarshaha Shigrata Dakshyam Cha Utsaha Gunaha. That is mantra 5. Then Vagmi Pragalbaha Smriti Mati Balavan Ugraha Swavagraha Kritashilpaha Avyasanaha Dandanayupakarapakara Upakarayoho Drishta Pratikari Hriman Apat Prakritiyoho Viniyokta Dirga Duradarshi Deshakala Purushakara Karya Pradana Sandhi Vikrama Tyaga Samyama Pana Parichidra Vibhagi Samvritaha Adinabhihasya Jihrma Brukuti Kshanaha Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Stamba, Cha, Apalo, Patapa, Paishunya, Hinaha, Shuklaha, Smita, Smitodagrabibashi, Vruddhopadeshacharaha, Ityatma Sampat. All these we'll see later, don't worry. I want you to have the benefit of me reading. But essentially, what is Kautilya saying? In the king, we will see it. I'm not going to discuss it now. When we discuss the king, I will once again bring it. All that I want to say is this entire mantra 3, 4, 5, 6. 3 is called Abhigamika Guna. I put it in blue color. You just see. I have colored it. So there is a set of things called Abhigamika Gunaha. There is something called Prajna Gunaha. There is something called Utsaha Gunaha. There is something Atma Sampat. So what are these? So Kautilya is saying a king needs 4 types of capabilities. I have summarized it. Later we will see. Each one of them are interesting. We will see later. A king needs 4 categories of important capabilities. One, he should be inspirational. He should be easily approachable. If he looks very, fearful, nobody will go near him. He will not be attracted by the people. Then he is not a great leader. Therefore, Kautilya says it's called Abhigamika Gunaha. Gamana is going. Abhigamika Guna is your ability to go near. He is approachable. He is a force of attraction. So he says a king must have such skills. If he doesn't have such skills, he cannot be a great king. I think the prajas must be attracted by him. Prime Minister Modi ji is attracted by a lot of people. Maybe he has that kind of inherent. Some great leaders, many leaders are like that, for that matter. Prajna Gunaha, intellectual soundness. It's very important for a king. He should be intellectually very sound. Buddhi should be sharp, no? So he says this is another set of skills he is talking about. Utsaha Gunaha, he should have a lot of josh. He must be an embodiment of energy so that people on seeing him should get energized. That is what is required of a leader. A leader has to come and everything will happen. So that is what it is. So Utsaha, in fact, many of these ideas we can take it to a corporate setting also. All these are the virtues for a CEO or a leader to be. We can even talk leadership skills with all these. Details if you see, it is interesting. Utsaha Gunaha, drive and energy and executional excellence. All these are clubbed there. Then 4th, he talks about Atma Sampat. He should have personal greatness. No? He should not be a mean-minded. He should not be somebody who is so bad in his character and he will always, double cross, cheat people. That's not good. The Vyakti should be very good. The raw material must be a good raw material. So Atma Sampat, personal greatness, is also required for a king. In fact, I would replace king and call it as a leader and say the same thing. That's the interesting part. Personal greatness, behavioral and attitudinal excellence. So those are in that detailed set of shlokas. I read quickly the Sanskrit shlokas just to give you a feel of it. But the summary is here. So what Kautilya is doing is not only expressing the entire public administration using 7 elements. For each element, he is also saying what is important. How that element should be properly configured. How that element must be properly available. Only then it will work, no? So first he talks about Swami Sampat. Then Amatya Sampat Purastat, that is a mantra, which means I already talked about it. I am not going to talk about it. So we are also not going to talk about it. I will talk about it later. When we talk about Amatya, I will take it there. Maybe he has written it in some other chapter. We will take it there. Then Janapada Sampat. What is great about the country? That is the next thing. So look at what are all things he is talking about. Madhye Chantecha Sthanavan Atmadharanah Paradharanascha Apadi Swarakshakah Swajivah Shatrudveshi Shakya-samantah, Pashanoshara Vishama Kantaka Shreni Vyala Mrikata Vihinaha Kantah Sita Kani Dravya Hasti Vanavan Gavyah Paurusheyah Gupta Gocharah Pashuman Adeva Matrukah Varistala Patabhyam Upetah Sara Chitra Bahupunyah Dandaka Rasa Saha Karmashila Karshakaha Abalishaswamya Avara Varna Prayah Bhakta Shuchi Manushyaha iti Janapada Sampat. Again, he is very beautiful. I am going to take each one of them and explain to you. Then you will understand what he is saying. First he says, Madhye Chantecha Sthanavan. Okay? The country must be such that it must have some strong positions, both at the center and at the edges. Only then you can protect. Something happens, then you should have more than one place to hide and then fight and etc. etc. So, Madhyecha Antecha Sthanavan. Sthanavan means one which has a very good Balavan, like Balavan. Balavan means one who is very strong, Buddhiman. So, Sthanavan means good location. That's the meaning. Madhyecha Antecha Sthanavan. Atmadharanaha. It can sustain itself. If it cannot sustain itself, then we depend on some other country. See, if you take some countries, I was in UK. UK is a small country, but even in UK, there is nothing, not much is grown. Many things are coming from outside, like that. So it is, the tropical countries are all well endowed with everything. So Atmadharanaha, Paradharanascha Apadi. When there is apat, when there is distress, can this country also support others? Do you have that much? Is that place such a nice place? Paradharanascha apati. See, the fight between, many of these fight that is happening in geopolitical dynamics today is only because of the wealth, no? Because that will do all this. The oil or minerals. Ukraine fight is because there is a lot of rich minerals, etc., etc. Like that. There was the Gulf War in 90, Kuwaiti War. All these are because the place is become attractive because it is Atmadharanaha Paradharanascha Apadi. Okay, that is the first. Swarakshakaha Swajivaha. It is easy to protect. And it provides excellent means of livelihood. This is, if a land is like that, that's a good land. That's what he is saying. Your country, if your country is like that, you are inherently strong. That's what it means. Shatrudveshi, Shakya Samantaha. It is malevolent towards enemies with weak neighboring princes. Okay? So the neighboring princes, when they are weak, you should allow them to freely access and that kind of thing, possibilities must be available. For example, India, I am not saying weak and strong. As an example, I am saying India has a very nice relationship with Bhutan. Because India is strong by virtue of economic size and that. But it's a very nice country. So we provide an easy access to them, and we are able to have parts of our land where we are able to provide that access. That's what it is. So, Shakya Samantaha. Panka Pashana Pashanosha Avishamaha. Okay? It should be devoid of mud and stone. Okay? Then Kantaka, salty ground, it should not be. All those should not be there. Shreni, which means steps. It's uneven. The land is not even. It's all too much of uneven. Okay? Vyala Mrigatavi, which means it is all populated by wild animals. That means you cannot do, at best you can put a zoo and collect some fees. Beyond that, you cannot do anything with the land. You cannot run an industry, you cannot have citizens living, assuming the entire land is only Vyala, Mriga, Atavi. All animals and wild animals are atanam, going here and there. What is the use of that land? Hinaha, it should be without that. That's what. So, this is what he says are the attributes of a good country as a land, how the sampat of the Janapada. Again, what he is doing, some more are there. Kantaha, it should be charming, very attractive. Okay. Sita Kani Dravya Hasti Vanavan. Right? Dravya Hasti Vanavan. It has all the dravyas. Then Hasti Vanavan, elephant forest. You may say he repeatedly talks about elephant forest because at that time the biggest known machines are elephants. So if you have more elephants, you have strength because they do a lot of work, they protect during fight and all that. So elephant forests are very important. That's why he says Hasti Vanavan. And Dravya, Sita Kani Dravya Hasti Vanavan. You know, it has agriculture land, etc. Gavyaha Paurusheyaha. It is cattle can goes, cattle can pastoral land are there. That's what it is, beneficial to cattle. Gupta Gocharaha. So protected pastures are there. Where gom charati iti gocharaha. So where cow can do so that is Gupta Gocharaha. Pashuman, rich in animals. Pashuman. Okay. Adeva matrikaha. It doesn't have to depend entirely on rain. It should not be so critically dependent on rain. Not Deva matrikaha, Adeva matrikaha. Then it's Varisthala, not Baristhala. There is an error. Varisthala Patabhyam Upetaha. So it has water and waterways. If there is, if you go to Amsterdam or if you go to Sydney, for example, what you find is there is a nice waterway. In Italy, you go Florence, for example, waterways, because that's another source of, it's nice to have a nice waterway. So that's what is Varisthala Patam Upetaha. Sara Chitra Bahupunyah. Lot of commodities. Okay. Dandakarasaha, capable of bearing fines and taxes. People, if you slap fines and taxes, people should be able to bear it. Then, there is, Treasury can collect more money. Okay. Karmashila Karshakaha, it attracts workers. Karmashila Karshakaha, it really attracts workers. Here it is farmers. At that time it is farmers. Today we can say, you say Bangalore attracts workers because climate is good, this is there, that is there, etc. like that. Although there is a traffic problem now. Now I don't know whether it will attract. But Karmashila Karshakaha, Abalisha Swami, Avara Varna Prayaha, not Vara Varna, Avara Varna, means lower Varnas, workers. Avara Varna Prayaha, inhibited mostly by lower level Varnas, which means Vaishyas, traders, and because pyramid is strong only at the bottom, you need more of them. Only a few people can think, others have to work. Right? Bhakta Shuchi Manushya. People, it must be occupied by people who have bhakti and clean, Shuchi. They are clean in their thought. So if somebody has all these, it's like a Deva Bhumi. That country is a very good country because it has everything you ask for, it is there. So he is defining perfection. What is the best country that you can aspire to have? Again, if you look at all these can be put under 4 categories. The first set of things he talked about are locational advantages. Madhye Chantascha, Stanavan, all those that he is talking about. Locational advantages. Then he talked about appropriate soil composition. Only then Sasyas, Krishikarya, so only then, cash crops, all that we can do. So appropriate soil. Soil must be good. If it is a barren soil, what do you do with that? He talks about all those. Then rich endowments with minerals, etc. You should have iron, you should have copper, you should have, why not, natural gas and petrol, why not? as much as you have, it is a good country. He talks about all that, silver, gold, etc. Then he talks about promising. In fact, one leads to two, two leads to three, three leads to four. If you think about it, that's how it is. Then it promises economic potential. So he says this is an ideal country. Now, today's planners must actually take this list and start ticking. What are there, what are not there, how can we get some? That's the interesting part of it. He has given the gold standard for every one of the Prakriti. He gave the gold standard for king. Amatya we will see later. Now he has given a gold standard for what kind of a territory you should build, what kind of a land you should aspire for. So when you do land development, this is a handbook that we can keep. So this is Janapada Sampat. Then he talks about Kosha Sampat. How do you have a very good treasury? Public finance. How do you have? He says, Dharmadigataha Purvaihi Swayamva Hemarupya Prayah Chitra Stula Ratna Hiranyah Dirgamapi Apada Manaryata Saheti iti Kosha Sampati. There are three beautiful conditions he gives. First he says, Dharmena Adhigataha. You do not earn it by all wrong means, by plundering. In fact, he has, in Arthashastra, he has said, if you, just like our invaders did, because the old time invaders plundered blatantly by violence, the most recent invaders also plundered in a very sophisticated way. The Britishers and all those, they also, in my opinion, plundered in a very sophisticated way. In Arthashastra, he says you should never do it. You get the territory, put a good person who will be under your adhina. You don't touch any of those. That is what he says. So, dharma adhikataha purvaivyuha, either by your ancestors or you yourself. That is how you should build your wealth. Dharma adhikataha purvai swayamva. Either by your ancestors already left with you a great treasury, or you are able to do it in lawfully, not unlawfully, properly. That is the first condition he says. Then he says, Hema Rupya Prayah Chitra Stula Ratna Hiranyah. He says Hema, gold, Rupya Prayah, gold and silver, and Chitra or Vichitra Stula Ratna Hiranyah. You should have a lot of big jewels and cash. That is why, all these, we are able to connect it to today's governance. That is why Reserve Bank of India has so much of gold. In 1991, that was the gold reserves which we took and gave it to the Royal British Bank, because India was in a very bad condition in 1991. Some of you may remember when P.V. Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister, Manmohan Singh was the Finance Minister. You have to take that gold. Whatever you have in your reserves, the gold, you have to take it and give it to the Royal British Bank and then borrowed money. So we need, Treasury must have enough of this precious thing. That's what the second condition he talks about. Today also they talk about the reserves, bullions and other reserves, dollar reserves, etc. Then, Dirgamapi Apadamanaryata Sahate. If the fighting is happening for a longer time, Dirgamapi, fight erupts between you and your enemy. See, recently we had a 4-day fight, 5-day fight in Pahalgam and so on. Whereas the two countries that are in big fight today for the last 3 years, right, 22 onwards, Ukraine and Russia. So the question is, do you have that much of reserves with you which can hold you for a longer fight, for a longer time if required? So, withstand a calamity even of a long duration in which there is no income. It may need not be fight alone. It can be 3 famines, 3 monsoons failed, assuming. 3 years consecutively monsoon failed. I'm just taking another example. Then you have to take out of your reserve. So how much reserve do you have? A country which has a lot of reserves and surpluses is safe. That is a very nice way of measuring the treasury. So is kosha sampat. This is the excellence of treasury. Again, he has given guidelines. So here he is talking about three things. That your treasury must be lawfully acquired. That is the first thing he says. Second thing he says, it must be the right combination of the asset classes. That's why he says Hema, Rupa, Vichitra, Bahu, Ratna, Hiranya, Ityadi. And the modern equivalent of that is you should have the right combination of asset classes. How much dollar you should keep, foreign exchange, how much gold you should keep, how much debt instruments and bonds. You can think like that. In those days he is talking, the equivalent is right combination of asset classes. That's the second thing he talks about in Kosha Sampat. The third thing he talks about is adequate reserves. And we all, as I told you, we faced it in 1991. Our reserves really were very, very bad. So we have to really borrow and the country was not in great shape. Then we started. Those ideas you find as how do you say your treasury is working very well? He gives these three conditions. So this is the Kosha Sampat. Then he talks about Danda Sampat. Pitra Paitamaho Nityah Vasyas Tushta Brita Putra Dharah Pravase Api Avisambaditah Sarvatra Apratihatah Dukkasahah Bahuyuddha Sarvayuddha Praharana Vidya Visharadah Saha Vriddhi Kshaikatya Advaidyah Kshaitra Prayah Iti Danda Sampat. Again he says, how do you measure the strength of your army? Army meaning police and army, but more the army which protects the country, no? How do you know you have a very good army? How do you measure? So he gives again some ideas. So let us see what are all the things he is talking about. He says, Pitru Paitamaha. The army must be acquired from the ancestors, which means there is a long history. An army which is recently developed is not strong. An army which is there for a longer time, even today it is how it is. Countries which have armies for 100 years, there is a lot of experience which are internally benefited from, baton passing happens, systems develop very well. That is the reason. So, Pitru Paitamaha, that which is inherited from the father and grandfather, that army is stronger. Rather than you start afresh, recruit people afresh and start a new army, there will be no, it will not be good. Okay? Nityah, constant. If it is there, okay? Vashyah, one who can be controlled easily. Vasham kartum shaknumaha. Vashyah. Because army uprising will be a problem. It will become a coup. So the army must be under control, no? So that is another lakshana. Obedient. Okay? Tushtaha Brita Putra Daraha. The soldiers are very happy with their son, with their children, with their family. Only when they are happy with the family, they will have their full attention here. Otherwise, it will be a divided attention. So what is the implication? That is why in all countries, the army men are taken care. That's why their pay will be, of course, they are doing a very important service also. But I think the most important thing is they should not have worries in their mind. If they have worries in their mind, that is not going to be a great army. That's why he says, Tushya. He says, Tushta, Santushtaha, Brita Putra Dharaha. Brita is Bharya, one who is supported by me, right? Putra Dharaha, supported people who are Putra and Dhara. Okay? That's the second. Then he says, Pravaseshu, avisambaditah, sarvatra apratihitah. Pravaseshu, whenever you have to go for an expedition of fighting, no questions. They are going to argue. No, 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 I don't think we should do it. No, no, let us not do it. No, this is not a good. In army, all those things are not generally to be done. So, pravaseshu avisambaditah. Okay? Then, sarvatra apratihatah. They will go like a water released from a dam, unhindered. That shows the power of the army actually. Sarvatra apratihitah. Okay? Then dukkha bahuyuddha. They should be able to put up with troubles. Even for a civilian duty, when there is a landfall in Himalayas, the army is called. When there is a big trouble in a city, the army is called. They should not mind those. Army will always have to do very troubled, difficult task. That's why it says dukkha sahaha. They not like a civil policeman. Army is have to be even stronger. All these has implications for training. Dukkha sahaha, bahuyuddha. An army which has fought more battles is much stronger, no? Because they know the nuances of fighting a battle. They are not theoretical, they are practical. So bahuyuddha. Okay? Sarva yuddha praharana vidya visharadaha. They are skilled in all sciences of warfare. See, one of the things that recently people have been discussing, I've been watching after the Pahalgam, fight. There are people who said that, Pakistan may have some intercontinental ballistic missiles of one kind, nuclear and all that, but they were not very sure whether there is enough skills to even operate it. So, statecraft requires a lot of training. It's not only important to have more advanced features, but enough training, enough experience, all those are required. That's what he says. Bahu yuddha praharana vidya visharadaha. Yudra praharana vidya. The various nuances of warfare. Saha vriddhi shaikatyat advaidya. So, he says, Sahavriddhi Kshaikatyat. His interest should not be different from that of the country, whether it is conducive, whether it is adversarial. If it is adversarial, I will run away. If it is conducive, I will go. No, that are all very risky things. Kshatra prayah. It must consist mostly of Kshatriyas. You cannot have 10% Kshatriyas and 90% civilians. Just because you have to put up a big army. That's not a good thing. They are all well trained. They have to be like this and so on. So consisting of prayah kshatriyaha bhaveyuh kshatra prayah. Mostly they must be kshatriyas. If you can put together an army like this, he says that is a danda sampat. Again, some of these parameters are parameters for skill training, parameters for attitudinal training, parameters for discipline. So many things are there. Parameters for deciding how to give them salary and perks, and everything will come if you take these parameters properly and understand it. And he has written all that, 2200 years back. So essentially, here also I find 4. First, he talks about pedigree. That's why he says it is acquired from grandfather time, Bahu Yudra, with all that kind of a thing. The Vidya, Visharadaha and so on. Right? Peace of mind is very important. Soldiers must have peace of mind, otherwise war will be lost. Soldiers must be kept in good humor all the time. There are some things which we saw there. Then warrior instincts. A warrior must have warrior instinct. Naturally, it should come for him to fight. You have to, detect that when you do a selection for your army and all that. So, warrior instincts. Then loyalty. They should be very loyal. So, those are, you can club those parameters under these 4 kind of categories. So, this is Danda Sampat that he talks about. Then Mitra Sampat, Mitra Amitra Sampat. Next thing he talks about, so he left fort, Durga he left, Amatya he left. Because in both in the mantra he says Purastat. I have already told elsewhere, I am not going to tell. That's why it is not to be found. So the remaining 5 only we are saying. King's Sampath, I did not go in detail. I just gave you only that. That detail we will see under king. It gets too heavy, so I thought I will keep it. So Mitra Amitra Sampath. Mitra Mitra Sampath. He says, what are the benefits of a bad army, a bad enemy, and what are the requirements of a good friend? He is talking both also at the same time. Anyway, Pitru Paitamaham Nityam Vashyam Advaidyam Mahal Lagu Samuttamiti Mitra Sampath. There are 4 things he talks about Mitra Sampath. Then about, he says, when is it beneficial to have an enemy who is terribly bad? That is Amitra Sampath. He talks about it as Amitra Sampath. And what are those? Araja Biji, Lubdaha, Kshudra Parishtakaha, Virakta Prakritihi, Anyaya Vrittir Ayuktaha, Vrittihi Ayuktaha, Vyasani, Nirutsahaha, Daiva Pramanaha, Yatkinch na Karyagatihi Ananubandha, Kleebaha, Nityapakari, Chet, Amitraha Sampat. So he says these are the Amitra Sampat. Then there is a 14th mantra. Evam Bhutaha. If there is a Shatru who has all these Amitra Sampat. Evam Bhutaha hi Shatruhu Sukhaha Samuchetum Bhavati. You can easily conquer an enemy who has all those categories. If you find categories like that, that fellow can be easily captured. That's the 14th mantra. So the 13th and 14th mantra talks about Amitra Sampat and how is it beneficial to you. That's what Evam Bhutaha hi Shatruhu Sukhaha Samuchetum Bhavati. Now what are those? He says Pitru Paitamaham Nityam Vasham Advaitam Mahal Lagu Samuttam iti. 4 of them. He is that ally, the neighbor is a friendly neighbor for so many years. For 50 years. USSR, Soviet has been like that for India for a very long time. They say all weather, no? They say all weather friend or an ally. Soviet Union and India relationships from Nehru's time, from independence time. That's what he says. Pitru Paitamaham Nityam. One who has been our friend for a longer time is a very reliable friend. The length of the relationship is a strength of the relationship. So that's what he is saying. Okay? From the days of the father and the grandfather. And because there is a, hereditary, that's why father, grandfather. We don't have to use the word father, grandfather. We can say previous government and government before that and government before that, like that we can say. For us, that is the father and grandfather in a democracy. So you can replace it like that. It still makes meaning. Nityam, he is all weather, constant. He will not blow hot and cold. We have been experiencing some of these very interestingly. Trump has been very friendly with our Prime Minister Modi. Now it is not for whatever reasons. So he is anitya, not nitya. So whether he is a Mitra Sampath, according to Arthashastra, no. You be watchful. That's what it means. Then Mahal Lagu Samuttamiti. He doesn't have Advaidyam. Then Vashyam Advaitam. Advaidyam. Vashyam is one who can be very conducive. He can keep, you can keep him under control. Control in the sense he will listen to you. He will be willing to do what you want, etc. like that. It doesn't have necessarily be a control like that. It can be also that, okay, because that is the current attempt. They want to keep India under control. They're testing whether India can be controlled. That is the testing happening now in the geopolitics now, and Prime Minister Modi is saying, no, probably not. Anyway, so Vashyam, then Advaidyam, not having a separate interest. There is no Dvida. Dvaidyam means Dvida Bhava. I am not, now I will do like this, sometime later I will do something else. That's called Dvaidyam. Dvida bhavaha is dvaidyam. So advaidyam. So it's not advaita of that kind, it's advaidyam. Dvida, dha means twofold. Dvida bhavaha dvaidyam. Advaidyam is one who doesn't have a twofold approach to things. Which means I'll do something today, I'll do something else tomorrow. Should not be. The Advaitam came a few times if you just see in the earlier mantras also. Then Mahat Lagu Samuttamiti. He is very great, and Lagu Samuttamiti, very easily you can mobilize. Samuttam is making effort and mobilize, and Lagu, it's easy, which means help is required, quickly help will be given. The NATO is giving immediately help to Ukraine, no? Like that. There is called Lagu Samuttam. So these are the four requirements of a good ally. Again, today we can test it in some of the geopolitical examples that we have. Then, what about this fellow who is a bad enemy whom we can easily capture? A bad enemy is your sampat. That's why he says Amitra Sampat. And what was those? He says Araja Biji. There is no Raja Bija. He doesn't have any seeds of a princely thing. He is come from nowhere, some useless fellow. Like that. He's not a Raja Biji. He's a Araja Biji. Okay? Not of royal descent. So that is what it is. Lubdaha. Greedy fellow can be easily bought. Greedy fellow can be, you can lay a mouse trap and catch him. You know what is his greed and you can feed it. And easily, there are so many stories also we have seen in Puranas, even in our, if you look at this country's history, how did, Vijayanagar Empire fall? How did East India Company and Britishers grew? There were Lubdas. There were some kings who were greedy. They just, worked on it. Actually, they worked on it. That's how it happened. Vijayanagar kingdom fell because between the descendants they were not this one fellow was greedy and then so now you know the weak point. That's what he is saying. A Lubda easily you can catch and then take the territory. Lubda. Kshudra parishkatakaha. His parishat, his counselor are all mean-minded. Kshudraha. Kshudraha is mean-minded. Kshudra parishkakaha. The parishat is all kshudra. Parishat kaha. Okay. Then virakta prakritihi. The prakritis, that is the people are very, very viraktas. They are very upset with the king. That's the time you can pounce. Right? India is looking at Pakistan occupied Kashmir like that. They are seeing when, such things can happen. Perhaps they may be seeing such things. Right? Virakta prakritihi. Anyaya vrittihi. His ways of doing things are all anyaya, not nyaya. Okay, his behavior is all unjust. Anyaya vrittihi. Ayuktaha, he is not yukta. He is ayuktaha. He is not a composed personality. He is a split personality. He is not a very integrated thinker. He is not applying himself to duties and all that. That's a, there are R.P. Kangle's, mostly I'm using R.P. Kangle's, translations only, not Shama Sastri, but R.P. Kangle's. Okay. Then Vyasani, one who is very vicious. Nirutsaha, utsaha eva nasti. He doesn't have the josh. He is a very dull fellow. Nirutsaha. Daiva pramanaha. Okay. Who believes in fate. Daivam also means, Daivam has many meaning. One of the important meaning is fate. Daiva pramana, he thinks everything is because of fate. That means he will not take initiatives thinking, oh, all this is because of fate. Such a kind of behavior is very much possible. So, Daiva pramana, okay. Then, Yatkinchana karyagatihi ananubandha. Yatkinchana karyagatihi. Oh, yatkinchana karyagatihi. Whatever pleases, whatever he feels like he will do. His karyagati, the way he does work, is based on whatever pleases him. Yatkinchana karyagatihi. Oh, this is what it is. Let us do like that. Like that. Ananubandha. He doesn't have a following. Okay. What he does doesn't have support. That because he is not doing things properly, he doesn't have a support for what he is doing. There is no anubandha. There is ananubandhu bandha. Kleebaha. He is an important fellow. Like in the word kleba means eunuch or impotent. So kleebaha. Then nitya apakari. Always he will do not upakara, apakara. He will only harm others. His attitude and thinking is such that he will only create trouble for others. Nitya apakari, not upakari, apakari. Right? All these, one set. Then, evam bhutahi shatruhu, if an enemy is like this, sukaha samuchetum bhavati, you can easily win. You can finish that fellow in no time. So that is what, that's why Amitra Sampat. His Amitra's weakness is my Sampat. So that is how, he talks about. So he not only defined 7 elements which makes public administration, he also said what is the best way to configure each one of them. Everything is part of this chapter. Book 6, chapter 1. Then, so far he talks about the Sampat. Then he makes a couple of very important remarks. This is in shloka form. So far it is Gadyam. Now it is in Padyam. That's what, some Arthashastra are in Padyam, 380 of them are in Padyam, I told. Arivarja prakritayah saptaita swagunodayah ukta pratyang bhutaha ta prakrita raja sampadah. So he says, Harivarjaha prakritayah saptaha etaha saptaitaha swagunodayaha uktaha. Uktaha saptayetaha prakritayah. What I have said, I have described 7 elements, he says. Uktaha saptaihi etaha prakritayah swagunodayaha, when they are able to, and arivarjaha, they are doesn't have any other problems, right? Pratyangbhutaha ta prakritaha rajasampataha. So if the 7 elements are the way I have actually talked about, then it says they are all pratyangbhutaha prakritaha. They all become subordinate to the king, so the king will be able to make use of them very well. The king is also part of it. I don't know why he said 7, but because king also has to have good qualities. That's why he's saying, if all these 7 qualities are available, then all these elements of the Kautilyan state will become subordinate to the king. That king will be able to administer the country very well. That is implied by this shloka. Then he says, Sampadayatya sampannaha prakritirātmavan nrupaha vivruddhāscha prakritirhantyanatmavan. He says, Sampadayati asampannaha prakritihi atmavan nrupaha. Okay? Asampannaha prakritihi. Okay? Atmavan nrupaha, if the nrupa has the atma sampat, if the king is very good, of the 7, first we talked about the Swami Sampat, no? So now Kautilya says, if the Swami Sampat was very good, then he says, Asampannaha prakritihi sampadayati. Even if some of the elements are not well endowed, sampat nasti, asampannaha. Prakritihi Atmavan Ripaha Sampadayati. A good king, the Swami Sampat, if it is very good, then even if some of the elements are not necessarily the way I have defined, he will make good. So the king is critical. The leader of the country is critical. So that is what he is trying to say here. Then he tells the other part. विवृद्धाश्चानुरक्ताश्च प्रकृति हन्त्यान् प्रकृतिः हन्त्यन् अनात्मवान् हन्ति अनात्मवान् हन्त्यन् अनात्मवान्. So what he says is, if the king is not an atmavan, it is an anatmavan, which means the king is not good. Swami Sampat is not there. If the Swami Sampat is not there, even if all the prakritis are good, vivruddhascha anuraktascha prakritihi hanti anatmavan, hanti anatmavan. So a bad king, even if the other six elements are good, he will make it nashta. A good king, even if the other elements are not so good, he will make good. That is what he is saying. So he is saying king's attitude is very, very important. The Swami Sampat is most important. Again, I will translate it to a modern business organization also. If the number one is very good, then he will be able to fix he will be able to compensate for some of the limitations in the other elements. If the number one is very bad, if you have very good, other things, that is what is called value chain. Today, in business, they talk about value chain. I give several examples. In some companies, what happens? The marketing function is very good. Distribution is very good, right? They have good suppliers, but the production is very bad. If the manufacturing is bad, the company goes to... So that's what it is. And only thing here he says is there is one powerful fellow. If that powerful fellow is good, he can even make good of the others. So that is what he is saying, who is Atmavan. Either Atmavan or Anatmavan. So he says the leader is critical. The king is his attitude. The Swami Sampat is a very, very... That's why Swami Sampat was very long, if you see. The list is very detailed. We have not seen it. We will have to see it when we see king. But the Swami Sampat that is why very, very important. Then there are two more shlokas which he talks about. He says, Tatasya dushta prakritihi chaturantopyanatmavan hanyate va prakritibihi yati va dushatam vasham. Tataha, therefore or thereafter, whatever, therefore or thereafter, saha dushta prakritihi cha aturaha antaha api anatmavan. Okay? Hanyate va prakritihi bihi yati va dushatam vasham. So what he says is, tataha, thereafter, therefore, tataha, you can say therefore, okay? Dushta prakritihi cha aturantaha api anatmavan. If the king is a dushta prakriti, he is not well endowed, he is an anatmavan, his sampat is very bad, what will happen? Hanyate, he will be killed. The praja will not keep quiet. Hanyate, by whom? Prakriti bihi. Hanyate yati, he goes down the path of being killed. Hanyate yati, he goes down the path of being killed. The leader, the head of the state will be murdered. So many murders we see all over the country, all over the world, no? We see the head of the state is murdered. Maybe some of the reasons may be like this. Okay? By whom? Prakriti bihi. By the people. It may be by the people. When you say prakriti here, it can be the other six prakritis are all part of people anyway. They will also join hands and finish this Raja. Prakriti bihi va hanyate or dushatam vasham. The country will go under the control of a enemy. Dushatam vasham yati. It may go under the subjugated by some enemy will take over. Now, all these, although it is a little difficult to directly explain it in a public administration, all these you can explain it in a business setting. Takeover will happen, somebody will take over, competitor will gobble it, and those kinds of things are possible in a business setting. We can talk about all these today, whereas in today's governmental, because territorial things are getting, but nevertheless they are interesting observations. Then he says, Atmavan stvalpadeshopi yukta prakriti sampada nayasha prithivim krishnam jayatyeva nahiyate. Now he says, Atmavan, if that king is very good, if that leader is very good, Atmavan, Swalpa Deshopi, he may have a small territory. His Desha is only Swalpa. It's a small territory, small country. Swalpa Deshopi Yuktaha, Prakriti, Yuktaha Prakriti Sampata, if his, all his Prakritis are very good, the 6 elements that we talked about along with Swami Sampat, if all of them are good, what will happen? Krishnam Prithivim Jayati Eva. He will win over the whole earth. Meaning, these are all exaggerated. It is like a kavya. So, what it means is that he will be able to take more and more territories and expand his territory because he has a right attitude. He is a very good person. All his 7 elements are very good. So, Atmavan Swalpadeshopi Yuktaha Prakriti Sampada Yuktaha Nayashaha Prithivim Krishnam Jayati Eva Nahiyate. He will not perish, he will only grow. So, he ends this chapter with these observations. But the most interesting part is that he has very beautifully defined how do you understand public administration. Public administration can be understood with 7 elements. That is what he is actually bringing. Now, there is one question which will come into the minds of people. What is the order of these 7? I have simply put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the mantra also says Swami, Swami, Amatya, Janapata, Durga, Kosha, Danda, Mitrani, Prakritayah. So I simply put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the question that needs to be answered is, what is the priority, what is the order? Now, this is one place in chapter 8, book 8, chapter 2, where the discussion happens about these constituent elements, these 7 elements. And Kautilya has disagreed with every teacher. He did not agree with anyone. They all told different order. He said, I don't agree. And he gave a counter argument. He said, no, it is like this. Now, the moral of the story, according to Kautilya, is the order is strictly what he said. So I will show you that discussion, little bit of discussion he has, I will show you. Book 8, chapter 1 talks about the order of priority of the Prakritis. So different schools of thought, I am not bringing all the mantras. I thought I will just tell you the essence of what it is. For example, the school of Bharadwaja, which is the Bharadwaja. The Bharadwaja school said minister is more important than the king. The question is king important or minister important? That was the discussion. So Bharadwaja says minister is more important than the king. Kautilya says, I don't agree with you. Sorry. King is more important than the ministers. And he gives an argument for it. I am not getting to all those arguments. Interested people, please read it because it is a very interesting argument. Then, next school of thought, Visalaksha. Then the question came, is country important or the minister? Suppose you have to choose between the two. Then Visalaksha said, country is more important than the minister. Kautilya said, sorry, minister is more important than the country. So now what happens? Now king is more important than the others. Now minister is more important than the rest because we are slowly covering now. A is greater than B, B is greater than C. That is how we are coming now. So we know now the order of A, B, C, D, E. That's how this chapter is. Then there is the Parasara school. The Parasara school said that Durga is more important than Janapada. Fort is more important than the country. Kautilya says, sorry, no. The Janapada is more important than Durga. And he gives an argument for it. So now he says that is the third important thing. Then Pishuna, the school of Pishuna, they say that Kosha is more important than the Durga. Again, Kautilya says no. It is Durga which is more important than Kosha. He says there are ways by which you can actually recoup the Kosha. If you will ask the Durga, that's the end of the story. Like that, there are arguments. So he says again that Kosha is more, Durga is more important than Kosha. Then there is a Kaunapadanta school. This teacher called Kaunapadanta says that army, Danda is more important than Kosha. Now Kautilya says no. The Kosha is more important than Danda. So he puts that ahead of Danda. Then finally, Vatavyadi. There is one teacher by name Vatavyadi. He says Mitras are more important than Danda. He says sorry. Again Kautilya says no. Danda is more important than Mitra. So I have been telling you that Kautilya, although he brought all the past teachers' idea, he collected all of them. Arthashastra is a collection of the past ideas, but he adds a lot of value by taking a position on that. In fact, there are some shlokas in which I agree with Bharadwaja and Pishuna, but I don't agree with Visalaksha. In many combinations, he puts his views and he simply says not a statement. He says why. So here I did not get into the why part of it. He has given arguments for it. So therefore, I want to tell you that the order of the 7 elements are very, very important. The earlier item in the list is more important than the later item. Swami is more important than Amatya. Swami and Amatya are more important than Janapada. Swami, Amatya, Janapada is more important than Durga. Swami, Amatya, Janapada, Durga is more important than Kosha. Swami, Amatya, Janapada, Durga, Kosha is more important than Danda. Swami, Amatya, Janapada, Durga, Kosha, Danda is more important than Mitra. This is the way Kautilya has actually not only put 7 beautiful elements with which he configured a public administration framework, he also established this is very important. This is the order in which you need to really make sense of it. So what we are going to do, I will bring the class to an end now. But what we are going to do is we are simply going to follow these 7 prakritis because he has given us a nice structure. So the rest 7 or 8 sessions, I am going to take each prakriti and about which there is so much available. I can't bring, as I told you yesterday, I cannot bring everything, but I can do a dip test for you. Dipstick. I can only a dipstick for you. I can touch a little bit and show you. So I will go exactly in that order. We will start with Swami tomorrow. Next class we will do Amatya. Then we will go to Janapada. We will go to, like that we will go. So that is the structure I have created for this course also, because I thought this is a very good framework of understanding public administration. And I have been, as I have been telling you, many of these ideas eminently apply even in a competitive corporate setting. So I am going to do one session later. Maybe towards the end, I am going to certainly talk about how Kautilya's ideas are very useful for today's business entities also. It is not just for public administration alone. It is also for business management. That's why from time to time I am talking about it. I will summarize some of these and we will have one session in which I will also bring those kinds of ideas. I think with that we will bring the class to an end. It's already 9:25. I think we can close the session for the day. And if there are any questions, we will continue tomorrow with that. Okay. Shubharatri.
Thank you, sir.